I can tell you, District Attorney of Fulton County, Fani Willis, will be making a few appearances in Donald Trump's nightmares over the course of the next weeks and months. She's not messing around. If you look at analysis from legal experts about her as a prosecutor, they'll say that she's not messing around. She has a 90% conviction rate and very no nonsense. It's great to see. And I want to break down in this segment that we'll get to a press conference she held where she's explaining the most recent indictment against Donald Trump related to his attempts specifically in the state of Georgia to overthrow the democratic process and potentially unlawfully overturn the results of the 2020 election in the state of Georgia. But before we get to that, I want to know that I've properly kind of gone through some of the specifics about what Trump's being charged with here and give you an explanation on that front. So let's do that. Then we'll look at Fani Willis making this announcement. So it's an incredibly detailed indictment, 90 something pages, 94, 95, 91, something like that, and goes through all the different aspects of what Trump's being accused of. And also 18 other people are a part of this. 18 other people have now been indicted as a part of this same coordinated effort to overturn the results potentially unlawfully in the state of Georgia. And so then to kind of just focus in, of course, because the most notable part, and then we'll get to who else is related to this, with what Trump's being charged with. He is being charged with 13 counts, and they are as follows: violation of the Georgia RICO. This is the big part of it. RICO Act, racketeer influencing corrupt organizations, which, just as a quick explanation of what the RICO Act is, what is racketeering? Sometimes there's some confusion about that. Corrupt and criminal acts is kind of how I've succinctly defined it, by two or more people in furtherance of an enterprise. So an overarching goal, plan, enterprise, organization, again, plan, effort that unifies a group in criminal acts. And so then you can charge related to the broader effort that individual criminal acts were taken in furtherance of, if that makes sense. So that's the big one, and why this is so serious. Then count 2 that Trump is charged with, and 3 counts of this: solicitation of violation of oath by public officer. Then count 3 for Trump is conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. The next one, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writings, 1 count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents, and 1 count of filing false documents. Then you have 2 counts of false statements and writings. And if you are interested, you can go through and just read all the specifics about how Fani Willis and her office is breaking this down, depicting this large effort. And just watch out, because the dishonesty that people will roll out to defend Donald Trump is blatant, it's overt, and it often will try to pick one little nugget. Oh, in the indictment, it outlines this conversation between Trump and someone else, and they're saying that conversation, you can't have a conversation. That's not what it is. It's a broad, potentially unlawful effort to overthrow the results through fraudulent means, to pressure officials to do things that would be violating their oath of office, to put forward fake fraudulent election results. And that broader effort, then to understand it, you have to dive into the specific conversations that were taking place, and individually may not be so significant, but when you take it as a whole, absolutely is very significant. The other notable part, as I flip through this quickly to get to, is who else is being indicted in relation to the same conspiracy. And so you obviously have Trump, then you have Rudy Giuliani has been indicted, John Eastman, the crackpot lawyer of Trump at the time, Mark Meadows, Kenneth Chesebro, another lawyer. And I'll just skim through. You can look at the entire list of all 19 people, but the notable ones: Jenna Ellis, we remember Jenna Ellis, and Sidney Powell, among other people as well. Then last thing before looking at Fani Willis, here's the introduction. Defendant Donald John Trump lost the United States presidential election held on November 3rd, 2020. One of the states he lost was Georgia. Trump and other defendants charged in this indictment refused to accept that Trump lost, and they knowingly and willfully joined a conspiracy to unlawfully change the outcome of the election in favor of Trump. That conspiracy contained a common plan and purpose to commit 2 or more acts of racketeering activity in Fulton County, Georgia, elsewhere in the state of Georgia, and in other states. And then the rest of the indictment, the rest of this document is walking through the allegations that depict that broader effort. So with that being said, hopefully that kind of makes sense. Huge moment, historic. Again, Fani Willis is not messing around, and here was her announcement.
Thank you for joining us. I'm here with the prosecutors and investigators who have worked diligently on the investigation of criminal attempts to interfere in the administration of Georgia's 2020 presidential election. Today, based on information developed by that investigation, a Fulton County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment, charging 19 individuals with violations of Georgia law arising from a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in this state. The indictment includes 41 felony counts and is 97 pages long.
So there's 41 counts across all people, and then 13 specifically against Donald Trump. We'll stop that clip there. And we all acknowledge that one of the very notable aspects of this effort was Trump on the phone with Brad Raffensperger saying, find me 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have or one more than we need. And then so many other things. I just don't even have the time or ability to go through all of what's outlined here, but the pressuring of just officials all over the place, trying to get them, as was outlined here, to violate their oath by fraudulently putting forward results that aren't the actual ones. That I will also remind you, the call with Brad Raffensperger happened after the state of Georgia had already certified their electors, had already sent their electoral count to Washington to be counted on January 6th. And so the January 6th certification hadn't happened, but Georgia had already, boom, signed, sealed, delivered, we're done. And they're still trying to do this. And Fani Willis noted in her statements in the extended clip that he absolutely had the right to legally challenge the results. And there's a process for doing that. You can go through the courts. Trying to go beyond that, as they were doing, even as other people are accused of doing here, as a part of this broader effort, breaching voting systems, getting access to voting systems and voting machines and trying to tamper with them. And all these different individual acts that were outside of the legal process that is set up if you have an issue with an election. And Trump tried and failed to go through that legal process. And so then he went about unlawful, maybe, means. Brad Raffensperger, because he's a central part of this, released a very short statement saying the most basic principles of a strong democracy are accountability and respect for the Constitution and rule of law. You either have it or you don't. And that's absolutely the case. And just think about the hypothetical of if there wasn't accountability here. Then you would be saying, if you lose an election and you try to legally challenge it and that fails, you're completely within your right to do anything else imaginable, any other unlawful act, any other act outside of the legal process, you can go ahead and try. But because you're a president, we'll just let it pass. Then what's the point of a legal process, of elections, of law and order, as they say, if your name is Donald Trump, those things don't apply to you. Next clip here from Fani Willis from this press conference where she gets asked about the racketeering related charges.
In Georgia, the mandatory minimum when it comes to RICO charges, whether it's servable by probation or how that might play out?
The RICO charges has time that you have to serve, so it is not a probated sentence.
That phrase is going to be scary to Donald Trump. If she can get a conviction here because the RICO Act is a part of this, he would have to serve a sentence of some kind. I think the mandatory minimum is 5 years. And then this, I just love this response. I was watching live last night, the coverage of this with a friend. And when she said this, she says what you're about to watch and then just walks out of the room with no, all right, have a good night or anything. So epic. And she gets asked, what do you say to the allegations that this is politically motivated, that you're just going after Donald Trump because he's Donald Trump?
I make decisions in this office based on the facts and the law. The law is completely nonpartisan. That's how decisions are made in every case. To date, this office has indicted, since I've been sitting as a district attorney, over 12,000 cases. This is the 11th RICO indictment. We followed the same process. We look at the facts, we look at the law, and we bring charges. I make decisions in this.
And then it repeats there, and then you can just imagine her, boom, walking out of the room, which I loved. So there it is. Before ending this segment, the maximum sentence that Trump could get across all cases, as Mediaite reports, Trump maximum sentences add up to staggering 712 years and 6 months in prison for all 91 counts. Now, that's not going to be what he gets across all cases. That would be if every single one had to be served consecutively. It won't happen. But wild to think about that in theory, and so important, so important. And you'll hear me say this so many times as we talk about this case and others, especially the ones relating to Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election results, that there is accountability here. Because otherwise, again, as I said previously, presidents will have the understanding that if I really want to stay in office, I could just try anything. Maybe try to fraudulently create these forms that say these are the real electors, and let's send those to Washington instead, and then we'll just pretend I'm in the White House and not allow whoever actually won to take over. And that would be a disaster for democracy. Last thing, actually, I know I said the other thing was last thing on this segment. CNN reported, here's the state of Trump's legal troubles now.
Back, you're looking at a full list of charges against former President Donald Trump from all 4 of his indictments over the last 4 months. These are 4 different cases in Georgia, Florida, New York, and Washington, D.C. The 13 counts against him in Georgia this indictment brought last night bring his total to 91. 91 counts against a former president and current frontrunner, we should note, for the Republican presidential nomination. With back, you're looking at a...
There it is. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are able to be uploaded to the YouTube channel, plus get the bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, and there's a link in the description.